Well, Energica just filed for bankruptcy.
And now a sad moon is on the rise.
This video is brought to you by Flying Eyes, makers of the best sunglasses for motorcyclists. Their frames are tough enough to keep up with all the abuse I can dish out, yet flexible enough to be comfortable for an all-day ride. Click that link down below and get 10% off your order with the code SC10.
Now, I'm not gonna lie, I am very, very bummed about this. And I think the thing that's gonna irritate me the most is the easily foreseeable outcome of people down in the comments below who've already written the comments basically dancing on Energica's grave, thinking that this proves that electric vehicles are completely stupid and useless and have no place in the world, and they're all about, communism and taking away your freedoms, and that's silly, and it drives me nuts seeing that. So if you're posting that, go away. I'm sorry, just go away. We're here to have a serious and frank conversation about electric motorcycles, electric vehicles generally, and their place in the world, because they do have one. And I'm trying to come at this from a place of good faith. All of those arguments are not in good faith. And honestly, I don't care who that pisses off, because this one actually hits home for me, because I met the CEO, I've talked with the CEO of Energica US. I was in the pits at COTA when Stefano Mesa won a second place finish in the Super Hooligans race. The biggest thing that I saw when I was interacting with anybody from Energica is how passionate they were and still are, because just because the business is shutting down doesn't mean those people are any less passionate about making awesome motorcycles. And I think that's the thing that in my mind set Energica apart from a lot of the other electric bike manufacturers, is they did not give one rat's ass about the fact that their motors were so powerful that the range suffered. I was talking with Stefano and he mentions, he's like, look, we have to claim a range, we just have to. And so there is a way that you can get to the claimed range. You can ride it completely mellow, you can turn the power down, you can be in eco mode, and you can behave and do all that stuff, but you don't get a 175 horsepower electric motorcycle to be easy on the throttle. And I think that was one of the coolest things. Seeing him be like, look, if you buy an Eva Rebella RS, you're gonna do this a lot more. And when I rode that bike, it was spectacular. It was so much fun to ride. Not only did it handle very, very well, but it was one of the most thrilling motorcycles I've ridden, because you could literally just crack the throttle open and just feel this instant rush of biblical torque. It was unbelievable how cool that bike is. And that's not to say that they didn't have some long-range motorcycles. They built the Xperia, which was the biggest battery in an electric bike, period. It had the longest range. I was told that the way they tested the Xperia, it was so aerodynamic that it had less of a profile than a race bike. It was nuts to see how much work was going into those motorcycles. And they had a pretty wide range, from everything down to the SASE 9 all the way up to the Eva Rebella and the Xperia and the Ego RS. All of those really, really high powered kick-ass bikes. And they stand in stark contrast to Zero motorcycles, which I've ridden a bunch of Zeros, and the thing that I notice most about Zero motorcycles is they tend to be very clinical. They don't feel like they accelerate like a motorcycle. They feel very one-to-one. There's no peaks and valleys. It's super linear and it feels artificial. Whereas Energica, it felt like a high horsepower motorcycle. It felt awesome. And to an extent, Livewire is the exact same way. When you get on the one and you crack that throttle open and you feel the power, it's really cool, and it feels like the power's delivered on a normal motorcycle. It's not super one-to-one. Now, Energica's board had a meeting on the 14th where they were basically gonna be like, okay, are we gonna be able to save this? And it seems like they've decided to go into bankruptcy, cease all production and operations, which is a huge bummer because not only does it mean we're not getting cool motorcycles, but it means a lot of people are about to lose their jobs, or at this point already have. It does seem like Ideanomics, the company that owned a majority share in Energica, was basically just a vulture firm. They bought this share in the company and then they didn't see any value in pumping money into it, and so they just kind of let it die. It sort of feels like what Microsoft does with a lot of their game studios, where they buy a game studio, they run it into the ground, and then they close it down. I'm not casting aspersions here. This is just what I've seen from everything that I've read. But I think Energica ended up falling prey to the biggest problem of electric motorcycles right now, and that is they are simply too expensive. It's fine. It's totally fine to have this high-powered, super amazing, really high leader bike style or hyper naked style bike, but you also need a entry-level option. And this is something I've noticed with basically everybody in the game right now, which in my mind really at this point is just Zero and Livewire. Nobody has an affordable entry point. And I think we need to reimagine what that affordable entry point is, because when somebody's buying an electric bike, they're not looking at it like, oh, this is my weekend weapon, right? They're using it because it's an incredibly practical way for them to get around in a city. These are usually people commuting to work and parking in a downtown garage where they can plug the thing in, or they're bringing their bike back to an apartment and they don't have access to, a 220 garage that locks and they can, just plug it into the wall. Sometimes people will literally bring their bicycles through the hallways and have them out on their porch. I see that in downtown Austin all the time. And I think most of these big companies are forgetting that. I think it's really cool that they have these badass big bikes, but you have to have an entry point. This is the same thing that I've been shouting till I've been blue in the face to Harley Davidson. You do not have an entry point for anybody to get into that brand. There is no cheap motorcycle on a Harley Davidson lot. And to me, it feels like that's on purpose, but that's a whole other video. I think basically every single electric bike manufacturer needs to sit down and think, how are we gonna get somebody on a college campus to buy one of our bikes? You need a 72 volt or 60 volt option. Everybody needs a smc-r in their lineup. They need something that can be sold for between $3.5 grand to $6 grand. $6 grand is very much the upper limit of one of those motorcycles. I have the Solar Eclipse in my garage. I have the BTX Moto Volt in my garage. Both of those are $6,000 bikes. And to me, based on my experience, the BTX Volt is the only one that commands that price tag, and that's only because it has the upgraded components versus the base smc-r. Think about it like this. Ducati sells bicycles. They have I don't know if they still have it, but they have the horrendously named Futa, which if you're at work, do not Google that. But my point is, and I think this is totally relevant to people who are out there trying to think of how they're gonna get new riders into the brand, is they have something that speaks to multiple different people, right? The Ava Rebella, that bike is for the enthusiast. Nobody other than an absolute nut job is gonna buy one of those motorcycles, because you have to be a nut job to buy a Tuono, to buy an RSV4, to buy a MT10, any hyper bike out there, anything that's making north of like 130 horsepower, and I say that owning a 140 horsepower Tuono from 20 years ago, I'm insane. You simply do not need that power, but it's fun to have. And you have to be a certain kind of broken to want to buy one of those motorcycles. Not everybody's as insane or as enthusiastic about motorsports as we are. And as a company, you have to have an option for those kind of people. And I think Livewire, actually, of all people, is in the best place to build that because they have the S2 Aero platform. Imagine if they took the S2 Aero that's in the Mulholland and the S2 Del Mar and they shrunk the bike down just a little bit more and they made a supermoto out of it. The S2 Aero is such a nice power plant. It's such a good setup and it feels very modular. Energica had these big fuck-off batteries that were designed to go racing because they're an Italian company and the only thing Italians can do other than go bankrupt is go racing. I'm so sorry, I don't mean to make light of it, but I mean, MV Agusta, Ducati, Moto Guzzi, I'm pretty sure Aprilia too. I mean, that's kind of what happens to Italian brands. So I think what we're really poised to see is a comeback a little bit later. And I think by the time that happens, we'll see a little bit more investment in the electric bike infrastructure. And I think we'll see a lot more improvement in battery technology so we have longer ranges. Because as much as people complain about the price of these bikes, which is a completely valid complaint, another completely valid complaint is the range. And I think you can make the argument for a bike with lower range if it's very cheap and it's very clearly designed for poodling around in the city. When I think of affordable electric bikes that are doing what I'm asking them to do, it's the Z E1 and the Ninja E1. Those are very affordable bikes. They're not fast, they don't have the longest range in the books, but they're designed for scooting around in tight European environments or like downtown New York or downtown Chicago. That would be phenomenal. As somebody who grew up in the heart of downtown Chicago, I spent 18 years there. You could get from the South Side to North Avenue and back and do all of your stuff on, the 50 miles that the BTX Volt offers you. Because when you think about it, Lakeshore Drive, 45 miles an hour. Most are 35 mile an hour. And you can just get around a city. You're not taking it out for the weekend, but you can make the case for it. Now I'm gonna start rounding out my thoughts because this one probably got a little bit longer and a little bit more rambly. I'm really bummed to see Energica start shuttering operations. That is a really big bummer. They walked so that future electric bike companies can run. Like everybody's been talking about Damon. I will eat, what can I eat? I'll eat this. My kendo men. I'll eat this if I ever see a Damon on the road. Doubt they're ever gonna come out. I think a lot of motorcycle manufacturers need to stop making the top-end motorcycle that's only meant for enthusiasts and start by making something small. Build up the small bike, get the audience, and then get somebody up to the Ava Rebella, right? Again, it's the same deal we see with Harley Davidson. Nobody's buying new Harleys because you need to trade in a previous era Road Glide to afford the new Road Glide, and you're still getting a note on it. You know what I mean? Let me know in the comments down below what you think about electric bikes. Do you think we need to see more of these manufacturers embrace the smaller electric bike, or do you think they can get by selling these big ones to a small sliver of the market? Again, and here at the end, let's remember that a bunch of people just lost their jobs over this, so let's not dance on any graves, shall we? And in the meantime, I'm gonna go pour one out for Energica because I honestly hope Stefano stays racing on the Ava Rebella. I hope in some way they can maintain a race team in Super Hooligans because watching them race is incredible. It's absolutely incredible. You hear the FTR go flying by, just absolutely roaring. And then you hear this high-pitched jet engine whine go by as he just blasts through the front straight at Coda. It's incredible. So, yeah, I'm gonna go pour one out. Catch you guys in the next one. See you later.